District of Conservation is sponsored by the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, better known as CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thanks for listening to the program.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
Right now, get scary good deals on select Ring cameras and doorbells. See who's there. Keep your scaredy cats company.
Oh, it's okay, sweetie. I'll be home soon.
And protect your crypt from the real monsters.
Oh, come on. The sign says take one.
Save big on select Ring devices right now at ring.com.
Welcome to District of Conservation. I'm your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. Taylor, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Tell listeners where we currently are, because we had just come off of a dove hunt. It was my first ever dove hunt. Happy to report to listeners that it was successful. It was tough, but successful. So introduce yourself, your background, and we'll roll with it.
Sure, yeah. We're currently in our farm office, ranch headquarters, if you want to call it that. My name is Taylor Moyer. Me and my wife are 36-year-old cattle producers in North Carolina. We just had a dove hunt on our property. I have kind of a unique background to get here in that I was born and raised in agriculture, actually in the great state of Vermont, in a yearling and apple operation, yearling cattle and apples. So I was born and raised in agriculture. Both sides of my family are in agriculture, one being dairy farming in Virginia, the other being produce farming in New Jersey. I was raised on a beef cattle farm, raised around a lot of dairy farms. But I left agriculture to pursue a mechanical engineering degree and actually racing professionally for the last, from the time I was 18 till 36, so 18 years, and I worked professionally in NASCAR for the last 15, the last 5 being a crew chief. I always knew that agriculture was very much within me. It's what keeps me up at night. It's what I think about all the time, and it's my true passion, is what I really realized. If you asked me what I was most proud of in this world, it would be I'm most proud of my family and their place within American agriculture. So I bought the place we're at now myself in 2018. I had started saving for this place in probably 2010 as far as down payment, and then really worked hard from 2018 until basically last November when I stepped away from my racing career to work on my business model and build this place back. This is a 100-something-year-old farm. It was 30 years abandoned when I bought it. That was my opportunity to find land at a price point that I could start out at. So I've worked hard. I worked hard while working full-time in NASCAR for the last 5 years to grow my herd, to grow my business model, to be able to transition over to this lifestyle and this life, and this what my wife and I really enjoy doing. Full disclosure, are we at the scale where this farm produces 2 livable incomes for 2 adults with a child on the way? No. We both have jobs otherwise, but this is our heart and our focus, and our goal is to scale this to where it does. And we're scaling very tactfully, not taking on egregious debt, making sure we grow smart, because I feel like in agriculture in general, the sad part is you're generally 2 or 3 big mistakes from going out of business with as slim as the margins are. So yeah, one of the great things that we do here is we have a lot of enterprises stacked on the same acreage, and one of those enterprises would fall under the agritourism genre, I guess. But for us, we use a service called LandTrust, LandTrust.com, which is a marketplace service. It's a turnkey service to monetize agritourism, or monetize anything monetizable on your land outside of your production agriculture model. So I actually now work for LandTrust as well. It's a really good fit, but I stumbled upon LandTrust trying to find a service such as this for our farm that didn't have to add any overheads to bring that enterprise on. Basically a partnership with LandTrust. I was kind of hiring a team of 30 people to help me do this on a revenue share basis, which was great. I didn't have to put any money up front. We get it all set up, and then I have this awesome team of people that only makes money when I make money, so our interests are aligned. So that's how I came across you.
Yes.
We planted a dove plot on some leased land I have down the road. We never actually opened it up for public booking. I planted it as a proof of concept for people with land, farms and ranches, to show how a very small investment, in this case it was about $500 in fuel, depreciation, equipment costs, seed, fert, and time. That was what my investment was, to plant around a 4-acre dove plot. And then what one could do very simply is then monetize dove hunts over that property. In our case, we're using it for people such as yourself to bring in and show the business model. But I was offered $1,000 just for opening day. So that's 100% return on investment on one hunt. You could very easily sell one hunt, cover your costs, and then hunt with your family the rest of the time. Funny enough, the LandTrust listings we do offer here are photography and like a nice regenerative ranch tour. But the photography model alone, because we planted sunflowers and millet, which are very pretty throughout the summer, the photography amount alone would have covered and paid for the dove field by now. So there's some serious earning potential. This little model could be used on every pivot corner throughout the U.S. Pivots run in circles, fences run in squares. There's all these pivot corners which generally grow weeds. Put in sunflowers, do photography, shoot doves over it. You're going to make yourself extra money left and right. So.
And speak more to what your role is at LandTrust.
So, yeah, my role at LandTrust is I am the Landowner marketing and partnerships manager. So LandTrust and the LandTrust model is a two-sided marketplace. On one side, our supply side, the landowner side, is landowners, which is farmers, ranchers, production ag, folks in production ag. We match them with what we are calling recreators. They could be hunting, fishing, bird watching, stargazing. The options are endless, but we match those people together so they can share in that outdoor experience, right? For the landowner, it becomes a benefit of a new revenue service, as we spoke about. It's not tied to markets. It's not tied to weather. It's not tied to politics. It's a diverse revenue stream stacked on the land you already have. And to the other side, it's the opportunity to book exclusive access for the time period you book to these acreages, so you can enjoy them with your family or with your friends or with whatever party you're enjoying them with. It's very much the in-between model between using public land or paying to go on like a fully guided hunt, right? Kind of like with you today, I think it's the perfect option for first-time hunters because it's a controlled environment. It's not intimidating. We weren't sitting next to 100 other hunters shooting at doves today. It was a nice controlled environment where you and I could talk, enjoy each other's company. You could be very in your element, and you were successful, right? It's also different than if you just if you just paid to go on somebody's big dove hunt.
Right.
It could be so super intimidating. This is a really good way to dip your toe in. In the same sense, I see a lot of like very avid hunters love this model because, like, I'm this type of guy. I can't wait to go hunt a mule deer out west, but I don't necessarily want to spend. I would love a guide, but I very much love the experience and the adventure. I love the research. I love the hike. I love the hurt. That's what makes being successful or the sunrises worth it to me. I don't want to go sit in a lodge and be shuttled to a deer stand on a golf cart. Like, that's just not it for me. So this is very much the in-between. I also don't want to go out and fight public land. Like, I want to go rent a couple thousand acres for 5 days and just go tromps around and learn this sport, take it all in, and be successful on my own. That has a different value to me than going to an outfitted hunt or having a guide do the work for me. There's definitely a place for that, and I have definitely utilized that. That's just a different thing to me than going in. We call it like DIY private. That's what it is.
That's becoming increasingly popular too, and we're obviously on the eastern United States where we're mostly a private land region, And that's largely what's going to be available to people. And I've mentioned on the podcast before, and of course this is going to go into my greater report about our whole experience dove hunting on your property and learning more about the LandTrust model directly, is that it is a less intimidating platform because public land, as anyone who lives in the eastern U.S. knows, is very pressured. I don't trust the people who go there. I'm not saying everyone's going to be like Elmer Fudd, shoot recklessly, but I've just heard reputationally it gets very crowded. It's uncomfortable. And even someone who has hunted like me for 7 years, going on 8 years, I'm still fairly new to hunting. I haven't had many days in the field compared to people who've been hunting since they were little. But I've had decent, but it's mostly something I choose to do. I would prefer to do private land because it's just easier. I know landowners who need depreciation, they need culling, they need something. And a model like this could appeal to people like me, adult onset hunters.
Adult onset hunters, I love that. That's great.
And I think that's why your guys' model, because I had talked to your colleague about LandTrust before, just generally like what you guys are all about, and I remember he was saying that the model has gotten some sort of little pushback, even though you've had like the Wall Street Journal, all these other publications objectively highlight you guys and what you're doing. And I've encountered similar models. We have a company in Virginia. They're not as prominent as they used to be. Outdoor Access kind of is very similar, but they seem to have like a more regional focus. I haven't heard of them really expanding. They've kind of shrunken their influence. They're not as like out there anymore. So I know I've been familiar with the model. I've used a model like this. So how does yours differ from like other models that have existed, or why do you think your guys is having staying power?
I think ours has staying power for multiple reasons. I think Nick, our founder and CEO, I think he really hit the nail on the head in that our mission and vision both on both sides is like, when you call our customer service team, you're going to get Josh or Colin, real people. We have what we call LSMs, Landowner Success Managers. We have a lot of fun, great people that live throughout this country to literally, as a landowner, serve you truly customer service. I mean, our customer service goes above and beyond. Mm-hmm. We are super hands-on as employees of this company. We're also all the people that use this, right? So, yeah, I work for LandTrust now, but I work for LandTrust because I use this service. Mm-hmm. I manage people that are mine. The network that I have of other farmers and ranchers throughout the U.S. is one of the most valuable network I probably have in my life currently, as far as business resources and just knowledge base. Like, the stuff that's setting us apart from other farms and ranchers isn't taught in the university system yet. This is other trials that private ranchers do on their own farm and are nice enough to share the data with me, or I do something here and share the data with them. So we're really a company that is here to serve the people, both the farmers and ranchers and the sportsmen. And one thing that impressed me so much about Nick when I was talking to him originally is, let's back up one step. The reason this model gets pushed back is folks will say, oh, well, you are then hunting's going to become a rich
commercialized,
or it's going to become commercialized. Well, I'm a realist. Hunting is already that. I'm sorry that that's the world we live in. I wish it wasn't, but let me give you this concrete example. I grew up on a big farm where it was not uncommon for people to come knock on my parents' door and ask if they could hunt, at which time my dad would always say, yes, if you'll trade me some labor. You want to hunt for a week? I need 7 days of labor throughout the summer. Help us cut trees off fences. Every farmer needs a hand. I promise you, everybody in agriculture needs a willing and able hand. I've owned this place 5 years. I've never had somebody contact me and ask. I wish they did. If they did, you know what I would tell them? The same thing my dad said. The only caveat would be I would say, I'm going to ask you to sign up through LandTrust so I'm covered liability-wise. Yeah. Because the realism of the world that we live in, and I interview all of our landowners, it's not earning potential that most landowners are worried about. They don't care about the money. The number one thing everybody's worried about is liability. The fact that you can trespass on somebody's land, injure yourself, and then sue them, in my opinion, is baloney. And that is the number one reason I recommend anybody getting a LandTrust listing if you're going to let anybody that's not within your immediate family on your land, just to cover yourself. I don't care if you charge $5. If you're going to bring people on your land for any activity, please cover yourself. Maybe take this outside of LandTrust. Please cover yourself. I want the land to stay in agrarian use in the family. Don't let an accident, lose it. So what impressed me about Nick was when I started talking to Nick, he told me, he started this company. Great companies are created by people who solve a problem. And he saw out west when he moved to out there that the door knocking model was going away. There's a distrust between landowners and the general public. Like if you can't vet somebody nowadays and you don't know who you're really letting on your land, man, you're putting your family liable. So Nick just literally went and solved all the problems in this nice turnkey package. And we don't tell landowners what to charge. We have deer hunts. We have an elk hunt. You can go to Nebraska and go shoot a cow elk hunt for $25. That is cheaper than a movie ticket.
Whoa. I mean, excluding non-resident license?
Yeah, it doesn't exclude your licenses and stuff, but you have to pay licenses in every state, whether you hunt public land, whatever.
Yep.
You can go shoot a cow elk for $25 at some of our listings in Nebraska.
That's cool.
In Kilgore, Nebraska. I was just looking at the listing last night. That is a lot of meat for very, 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 very cheap.
Yeah.
You can't take your family to the movies, a family of four, for less than $50. You can't do it.
Yeah, it's expensive now. Yeah.
Very expensive, right? So that's the world we live in, and we don't tell anybody to set their prices. People can set their prices wherever. We help people. We help landowners bring people to their land in a safe and managed way. And I could tell that Nick started the company to solve all those problems, probably from the sportsman side, but I could really tell in his heart that you can only spend so much time with farmers, ranchers, and landowners, and they're hard people to not root for. And Nick's voice really changed, and he was like, man, I could tell he does this a lot now to help the American ag producer. Yeah. Because it is, to me, it's the most noble of professions, and that's not me touting my own horn, but food, water, and shelter are the only three things we need to survive. American ag producers produce one of those. I wish we held producers in more high esteem. But if I can help producers, I feel like when I'm working for LandTrust, I am truly helping American agriculture producers be more profitable, make more money off their land, be able to fight real estate values, right? Giving them a revenue stream that gives them some diversification against the markets, the commodities, global politics, all that. We have some awesome examples where an agritourism revenue arm on a farm or ranch has been enough that it's brought a child home from college and given them enough supplemental income to have your kid home. Or I have this awesome example where it brought a father, an old, gruff Yosemite Sam rancher from Montana, now has this super close relationship to his daughter-in-law who lives at the ranch, who didn't really have a place yet. They gave her the agritourism part of the thing, and she has taken it and run. They're dragging old calving sheds out of the hills and turning them into nice little cabins and stuff, and they love it. The folks we've had that dip their toe in, we're over almost at 700 listings now.
Wow.
The folks that we've had that have dipped their toe into this model, the ones that have really taken it and run, I mean, the revenue streams have become so substantial that it's life-changing money to an ag operation where they don't have to look towards solar, wind, whatever things. This is just something non-contract, free, simple. Most Americans now are familiar with Airbnb, VRBO, and Uber. It's the same type of two-way marketplace. And I just think Nick hit the nail on the head, and he timed it right. And I've met nobody that doesn't think even the people that don't necessarily agree with the model, they don't think it's a bad idea. They think business-wise, like, oh, crap, that's really smart. I mean, it is. You're solving a problem that is yet to be solved within this country. So, no, I have all good things to say about it.
Talk more about the dove hunt that we took. Obviously, it's the first day of fall. Autumn is on the horizon. It doesn't feel like fall because it's still hot and humid. But for non-dove hunters, could you explain kind of the environment and habitat you created for the dove hunt?
Sure. So a very traditional dove hunt, which is, we're in the southeast, we're in North Carolina, and dove hunting is a tradition. It is generally a tradition that marks the end of summer. It's always on Labor Day weekend. It's usually a group activity with aunties and uncles and kids. You hunt in the morning, you grill in the afternoon, and you hunt again in the afternoon. Traditionally, it's done over a sunflower field, which is what we hunted over today. It's funny. So it's still so hot around Labor Day that a lot of the doves hadn't migrated down here yet. So I had high hopes for our hunt this morning, and we ran up against some elements. We still had success. We hunted in about 2.5-3 acres of a cow pasture that I had taken out of service, and I had to disc the ground, which is not something I generally do, but due to some conditions that were out there, it needed to be disked. So it was a really easy, fun, cheap experiment to throw in sunflowers and in our case brown top millet back in May. And then we had this beautiful sunflower field, millet field. Traditionally you'd go in there and spray it to be a little less weedy than it was, but we've actually had historical rains all summer.
Wow. And
as you saw today, the field's pretty wet. It's hard to even get in there and bush hog.
Yeah.
So we've basically that was my 4th hunt over that field. Every time we've hunted it, we've been successful in that we've bagged some birds. That's what you were hunting in, though. And that field is a pretty good little setup because there was power lines to our back, which doves like to loaf on. There was 2 water sources, 2 ponds within 100 yards on both directions. And then we were surrounded in the 60-acre field was by, a lot of trees where the doves would loaf and roost. Now, what we didn't expect this morning was the fog.
Yeah.
And we were fogged in really heavy till 8:30. I mean, we probably had 50 or 75 yard visibility. And that's tough because the doves can't. I don't think they really can orient where they're trying to get to on the ground until that lifted. But it did, and we both shot some doves, and it was awesome to watch. So.
Yeah, they are really fast. Everyone who has told me you're going to love dove hunting, just prepare for the rush, they were absolutely right. And I kind of like the confounding elements too, because it makes you more situationally aware. And in my hunting journey, I've been very cautious, to not be trigger happy, to always be cautious, to know that we're shooting our intended species, because I don't want to shoot something wrong out of the season. I'm a conservationist. I always preach about, following the law. Don't want to make mistakes of that nature as someone who preaches it. And so for me, it humbles you when you have the different elements, whether it's fog or maybe not the most ideal condition, so you can understand and be aware of your surroundings. You saw, I was very aware. I was asking you questions, is it perfect? And then I got really into the stream of things, just don't do this, take a shot, or get ready, or stand up, or make movements, just be situationally aware. And so I think throwing in a little bit of a curveball is always fun in a hunting trip. Those are always the most memorable to me. I was telling you, I hunted during the bomb cyclone in coastal North Carolina, and to me, even only harvesting 1 duck, it was so impressionable for me because it was my first duck hunt. I remember that. I remember who I was hunting with, the elements, and we hunted really long and hard that day. And, even I'll remember the first dove hunt that we did this morning because of just, different elements and all that. And so for me, I'm fine with curveballs. Bring them on.
The dove hunt this morning was almost better for a first timer than a true barn burner. There's been dove hunts where they're literally as thick as mosquitoes, and it's hard for people to even focus on one bird, and you get caught up in it, and you're not as thoughtful about the process. This morning, right, the very first dove surprised both you and I, and it had landed at the base of our decoy before we even saw it, and we were unsuccessful. It kind of let me educate you as we went. I sat with you this morning because, just like you said, by us raising sunflowers and millet, we're feeding a lot of birds, not just doves. We had killdeer, we had blackbirds, we had that one unidentified bird, we don't know what it was. And I just wanted to make sure, just as you said, even towards the end of the day when both of you and I got so keen on identifying doves, we still had a killdeer surprise us. Yes. That came in locked up to our decoy, just like a dove does. I know. That would have been very easy to, misidentify. But no, dove hunting, you'll get on a barn burner hunt now, and you'll be so much better for it. You'll know what a dove looks like. You'll know how far you have to lead them with the shooting patterns. I mean, your dove was an awesome crossing left to right shot. You definitely hit it on the first shot. It would have died, I believe, and then you had a second follow-up shot, and that just to ensure I got the job done. It was stone cold dead when it hit the ground. It was great to watch, and it was tricky to find because we were looking for clues, and I looked on the edge of the plot section, and I looked for feathers, and I was like, oh, it's probably somewhere here, and lo and behold, it was. I was able to be like a bloodhound and sniff it out. It was great. Very easy to, I was like, oh gosh, it's going to be in the thicket. No, it was just right on the edge, right before kind of that clear section. Why don't you, I'm sorry, I'm not leading the podcast, but why don't you talk about how, the barrier to entry for a dove hunt, just talk about the gun I let you use, and then how
Your Remington was great. I loved using it. Yeah.
The most utilitarian shotgun there is. And then you cleaned all the birds,
yes.
and they're in the freezer in 10 minutes. 10 minutes with taking photo and video.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's a really good entry to wing shooting for most people.
It is.
You don't have to have fancy gear.
No.
It's not like trying to figure out how to gut and butcher and take care of a deer. Mm-hmm. It's great for, it's also just great fellowshipping time with
exactly making new friends.
You and I, yeah, exactly. Make two people can sit there back to back like you and I did and shoot doves all morning and have discussion. Yeah. Drink coffee. We talked a lot more politics than I talked in the last year.
Conservation politics.
We talked
farming politics.
Yeah, we had a great talk. It's just a great way to introduce people to the outdoors. It's generally when it's a lot warmer in the season. We're in blue jeans and t-shirts. It's great times.
Yeah, I started first with upland bird hunting, and it was December 2nd, 2017 when I became a hunter officially. And so I think this is an easier barrier to hunting than even upland, and definitely more so than waterfowl. Waterfowl, yes, you're dealing with smaller subjects, but ducks fly just like, and you have more people in kind of a smaller circumference of an area. Like your duck blind is a lot more limited as to how you can shoot, and you want to be careful. And so I do think, even someone like me, like I said, who's been hunting for 7 years now, wish I could hunt more, but my schedule is crazy. But I'm getting into the field more this season. I plan to, for sure. But it really is, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or you're just starting out, I think a lot of my more seasoned hunting friends, they do take their kids. They're like, dove hunting, we're doing it, do it now, you're going to love it. It's your good entry point into hunting. And the kids just stick with it, and then they get into other forms of hunting as well. So I have seen through friends posting on social media, them telling me word of mouth or in a phone call or in person, recounting their dove hunting trips. They say it is a good first step, and I totally agree now, having seen it for my first-hand experience. And so, yeah, I'll definitely recommend dove hunting to people now that I know what it entails.
About August 1st next year, just start calling your friends. Someone's going to have a dove hunt in their family.
Someone said to me, why didn't you tell me you were doing this? You should be in touch more. I was like, I'm sorry, I've been busy, you've been busy, so it's okay.
I see a lot of people that they only hunt one time a year, and it might be dove opener.
It's just that?
Older
wow.
folks, or people that maybe hunt one time a year, and it's dove opener with a group of friends, and it's a great social event.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
No, but the hunters in Virginia, we have similar conditions, but we've had a lot of drought conditions where the dove hunting has been very tricky, especially in the last year or two. I've heard my ranching, farming contacts tell me, we don't have a field that's good for dove hunting, so maybe that would have prevented me from doing that in recent years.
Funny enough, I actually had no hope for the sunflowers. I planted them because they're pretty, but generally we drought out really hard here, July, August, which a millet does really well in the drought. So I planted that expecting that would be the bumper crop of what the doves would eat. And we had the opposite. We had historic rain, and the millets pretty much drown out, and the sunflowers just did great. Now, it got so wet in there later we couldn't spray weeds to keep them. It's a pretty dirty plot, but yeah, no, I could see if you really drought it out, it's tough to grow a crop.
And yes, crops are very important for doves, and this is going to lead into my next question for you, Taylor, about, how sportsmen and ranchers, farmers shouldn't be at odds with one another. And I've talked about this with Nick. I've talked about this with my rancher friends who go hunting and vice versa. Hearing it from someone like you who does both, you're a testament to that. I know plenty of people. You're not alone. It's not an isolated case. Speak to why those two interests, whether through a vehicle like LandTrust or even not through a vehicle like LandTrust, why is it important that all stakeholders work together for conservation like this?
I think, I get where the animosity comes from, right? There's always bad eggs in both situations. And it's always the one bad egg that ruins the carton for the other 11, right? And same reason with the LandTrust model, it'll always be we don't let people on here because one time I heard that so-and-so's uncle had a bad experience, right? But that's anything. There's always going to be fear that keeps you from doing things, but you have to weigh that fear against the opportunity cost on what are you missing out against. I think farmers, ranchers, landowners, and sportsmen, we're both people that our success is very much based on nature and conserving nature. So we generally have the same thoughts on we have the same goal in mind. We might just have two different paths on how that goal should be achieved. But I can confidently say that I've never I think private land ownership is generally the best stewards of land, especially if you're in a production agricultural model like this. We literally rely on the land to survive, right? Good soil grows me good grass. Good grass, I use a ruminant animal to turn good grass from a carbohydrate into a protein, which is an edible human thing. Like, it starts with the land. Same way with hunters and outdoorsmen, right? I don't think any infighting between us is good for anything, because let me tell you something, sportsmen and farmers were both a minority. So that's like the whole slippery slope effect. Any infighting is only hurts the greater goal. I do love the LandTrust model, because even outside of hunting and fishing, we have a lot of farm experiences in the summer, and we're just getting people back out on the land as an appreciation. We had a suburban family come here for a regenerative ranch tour, and the children were literally crying as we went down the lane. Really? Because of the gnats.
Oh, yeah.
And they just really hadn't been outside much in their life. Within 15 minutes, these kids had gone completely feral.
Good.
Shoes off, running around the creek, barefooted where I wouldn't run. Tough little kids, falling down, chasing fish, chasing butterflies, chasing frogs. I just did the whole tour talking to their parents while these kids played. Like, nature is within us. We're not that far removed from humans being very reliant and a lot closer to nature. So as far as sportsmen and ag operators getting along, I think we all just have to humble ourselves a little bit, understand we have the same goal in mind, and then just work together to get there. The same way, like, I know a lot of people in agriculture that are hunters as well. That doesn't mean you don't like other hunters, right? I don't know exactly my point there, but yeah, I mean, we all have a similar goal.
They're shared enemies too. The people who want to get rid of both interests are the same. I think people don't understand. Like, you're facing the same odds. Like, if they don't attack you now, they're going to find a maneuver to get you. Like, they first start with ag because that's low-hanging fruit in their mind. Then they go to the sportsmen, especially hunters. And some people can't make that connection. But someone crazy as me who works in politics and sees this, has the foresight to see this and the parallels, I always tell people, you're better off working with people who aren't so different from you. They may use different tools, they may have different tactics, different goals, but you'll have share a common enemy of preservationists or antagonists or anti-hunters or radical environmentalists who really distort what conservation is. And see, I think the divisions really detract from the greater message. Could be about any type of industry you work in, where different stakeholders can work together, but something, ego or territory or dominance over an issue, takes precedence over having that greater goal of making sure everyone is covered and everyone is protected.
Yeah, you saw it. I figured out where my point was going, and you brought it top of mind. Like, Imagine a world in which LandTrust didn't exist, or no pay-to-play model existed. Like, the perfect relationship between a sportsman and an ag operator, I could see two examples. And these are two examples that happen right now. There's a lot of land. What's affordable to a sportsman to buy their own land for recreation is much different generally than what's affordable to somebody in agriculture for a production model. And there's places in the U.S. where land is being bought for recreation only, and since there's nothing on that land other than, let's just use Kansas as an example, and I don't know the specific example, I just mean let's use it. Kansas has got white-tailed deer. There's, as far as I know, there's no herds of bison or elk. So if that land sits dormant and there's no ag operating going on, and that sportsman just uses it for whitetail season, so maybe 3 months of year, how much, there's nothing cycling that grass, there's nothing cycling that carbon, there's no natural processes happening, and there's becoming a lot of juniper encroachment and fire load. The perfect relationship would be, let's say the hunter owns the land, go find a very responsible cattle operator. Write it in the lease that you can only graze your cattle there for certain times, and work together. I know that about every rancher is always looking for more land, and that relationship could work so symbiotically. You would earn extra income as a sportsman on this land you own to make your habitat better for deer. You would help a local rancher by providing more pasture for him. And the benefit to you is you're going to use that rancher and that cattle farmer to, like I said, make the habitat better, more income, regenerate. That would be one model. The second model could be the flip side of that. Maybe you're a rancher, and when these out-of-town hunters come and are looking at buying their own land, maybe the conversation is, hey, rather than buy your own land, we want you to hunt with us. We're going to farm all year and create a friendship. Like, let's just create common ground. Maybe that's again, completely hypothetical. Maybe that's a group of doctors and lawyers from Atlanta who have the means to either go to Kansas and buy a big chunk and let it go to waste other than deer hunting, or partner with a farmer and both of you prosper better and build a relationship. Bring understanding both ways. I can't tell you, I'll use myself as an example. I need to always be communicating more and more with people that I don't understand to understand where they come from. So you could get the sportsman side of things from an urban group of people that would pay. You can get their perspective. They can get the farmer's perspective. Maybe that helps everybody grow. I don't know. Those are just two really good examples of how folks could work together if they can reach a little common ground versus battling. Right. But if that is the case and the farmer and rancher can't find a relationship like that, but they want to still earn income, LandTrust is a good model. On the flip side, if those guys want to go find farmers and ranchers that want that relationship and they don't want to go buy their own ground, LandTrust is a good model.
We're definitely going to have follow-up conversations, I think more structured to and tailored to agriculture. But is there any other takeaway you want to have from our hunting experience, what people should learn about LandTrust, all the topics we've touched on? Anything else, like something you haven't touched upon?
No, other than I just can't wait for the day that everybody's aware of LandTrust. The same way, I think majority of folks are aware of Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
It's just an alternative model to the basic hotel model, or I don't know what they're other lodging models, right? I can't wait until when it's the summertime and the kids are out of school, and let's say it's a suburban family, anybody, let's just say it's a family. Kids are out of school, it's a Saturday, you're like, I gotta get these kids out of the house. What can we do right now? We could go to a park, we can do this, and I can't wait till somebody pulls out their phone and they're like, oh, let's go do a farm tour, or let's go do a hike on this person's ranch. We'll be the only person there.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait till those two are synonymous, because then it's going to give farmers, ranchers, and landowners a platform to share what we do and to honestly re-educate the majority of the public back to where their food comes from, and it lets them tell their own story. Yeah, it puts a little money in their pocket, but most folks are not out to get rich off of this. They're out to just share what they do and reach understanding. I don't know how many. I can't speak to this as much because I wasn't at the start of this company. But my boss Colton was the first employee that Nick hired, and he was the original kid that was going out to all the ranchers in Montana. And he's like, I don't know how many guys we have that are the old gruff Montana ranchers that were like, I don't like people, blah 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 blah. He says, and I've witnessed it, when those ranchers list their land and people come to the ranch, it's not the kids, it's not the wife that are talking to the people. It's those old farmers and ranchers. They just want to tell their story. They can act like they can act all day. My grandpas are like this. They can act all day like they're too tough to whatever. But when people come, they're big softies, and they want to show them this is their life's work. They want to show them, I raised the family, I built a house, I built that barn, I put 2 kids through college by working this land. They don't abuse the land. They want to show people that. I don't know any farmer that doesn't want to show somebody that. If you can give them the comfort for them to know that they can bring people to their land and not put themselves at risk, man, those people are good at sharing their stories. Yeah.
They do have lots of compelling stories and the type of different flora and fauna on their properties, especially whether it's out west or even here in the eastern seaboard. There is so much to tell, and I wish more would tell. And I think the older set are becoming comfortable, especially if they're on their way out or they're much older. They want to leave a legacy. We were talking about, someone who specializes in telling people stories, if they're on their way out or they're ill or infirm or something, or they just want to have a story to pass on to their kids and grandkids. The same should be for conservation, whether you're an ag operator or a sportsman or a landowner or someone who might be a little removed or just an adventurist. I don't know. And so we are trying to do, I think as an industry, people are trying to do a better job, which is good. We still have some miles to go because we still have a lot of convincing to do of people, of telling them why, hunting is good or fishing is good. Here's what real conservation looks like. It's still a little bit of a knowledge gap because you have these people who portray themselves as conservationists who are not. They're obstructionists. They hate the ag producers. They hate hunters. They hate gun owners. They hate everyone who's actually setting. They're into the field. They're doing the activities. They're seeing those monies go back to, Department of Treasury, Department of Interior, to the state wildlife agencies, PR, Dingle Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. And so people don't know again, like the point you made about people not knowing where their food comes from. People don't know how conservation is funded in the country. And it takes a multitude of people to do so.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that don't knock it till you try it, right? Like,
yes.
There's no harm. You could go on a dove hunt, go experience the beauty of the sun rising and sitting, and if you don't even want to bring a gun and shoot, don't go bring a gun and shoot. Go sit with folks. See if you enjoy it. I bet it would take a weird type of person to not enjoy that experience this morning.
Right.
It's human conversation. It's nature's beauty.
There's so many bugs and like dragonflies. I even saw I think some rust patch bees, some sort of pollinators, and then just the spider webs glistening in the light and the fog and seeing the dew. It was magical. I don't know, that's what these type of experiences do, even if you don't get your full lot. We didn't limit, of course, and sometimes you don't have to limit. You can have a successful hunt even getting a few individual birds, but it's all encompassing, like we were talking about. I will remember the dew point, the fog that was encapsulating your field, making sure to be careful of what type of bird to target. It's all encompassing, and I think people are learning about this from the outside, and once they befriend people like us who are steeped in it, have been in it for a couple years, whatever, I think they can shed their misconceived notions about conservation, whether it's hunting or the ag side, and see that it really is multifaceted, and you're right, don't knock it until you try it.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Maybe we should just close there.
Where could people follow you individually, your cattle operation, LandTrust? Give all the links if you can, Taylor.
Sure, let's start with LandTrust, LandTrust.com. You can email me directly at taylor@landtrust.com. We also have a customer service chat on there, as well as our customer service numbers. But just call LandTrust if you're interested in this at all. We can even guide you to your first experience if you just want to find an experience. We have the best customer service team, and we're super proud of that. So LandTrust.com, LandTrust Hunt on Instagram, LandTrust Hunt on X, all the social media platforms. Me personally, Ridgeview Land and Cattle is the name of our operation. RidgeviewLandandCattle.com, Ridgeview Land and Cattle on Instagram, or just Taylor C. Moyer on any of those. But all that's intertwined together. If you go to RidgeviewLandandCattle.com and click the Experiences button, it'll bring you to our LandTrust listing page. But yeah, please reach out. I enjoy talking about this. This is my true passion in life, and I would literally talk to those trees if there's no people to talk to it about. So,
well, this is not the first conversation we're going to have. I told you when we were in the field that I would love you to speak more about agriculture. We're going to probably talk about some interesting topics or taboo subjects in agriculture, should you incline a certain way or not, and we will have those conversations going forward. This has been such a pleasure. I appreciate you inviting me down to North Carolina. It was such a quick trip, but very fruitful, productive, and I know this will be the first of many interactions hopefully we'll have. I want you to come back on the podcast, and thank you for helping me get my first dove.
Absolutely. Thank you. You did a great job.
Beautiful.
If you enjoyed this installment of District of Conservation, I would love to know your feedback. Send it my way. Please be sure to leave us reviews on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are played, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to never miss a beat nor a guest announcement. Thanks so much for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please share the podcast to those who may be interested in learning more about these critical natural resources, environment, energy issues.